Hotel Maids of Reddit, what was the most disturbing thing you found while cleaning out a room? Hearing about ice cube trays perfectly filled with human crap being found in the minibar at the Hilton stopped me from ever using ice cube trays in hotels again. And me as well now. I work at a hotel but not a maid myself. Though one day a maid found a woman who committed suicide. She checked in so her family would not be forced to find the body. It was the middle of the day and the hotel was mostly clear of people. Nobody heard the gunshot and we have concrete floors that stopped the bullet from traveling out of the room. The way it was described to me was it was relatively clean. She lied in bed and put a pillow on her head and shot through it towards the ground. It wasn't until the cops came that blood got everywhere. The maid soon quit afterwards. This is extremely common in Las Vegas. We're the second most common suicide destination in the United States behind the Golden Gate Bridge. The hotels do their best to bury that information, but when people jump off buildings, parking garages are probably the most common, but 6 have managed to jump off the top of the stratosphere. It's considered a public suicide and will make the news. My first job as a teenager, I was a hotel maid. I've seen a lot of weird crap. But one situation that stood out was this creepy old man who would hit on me and my friend. Every time we would clean his room, the top drawer of his dresser would be open with what seemed to be a strategically placed unused condom that legit was like from the 1970s. I guess he never got to use it. His best game is hitting on teenage hotel cleaning staff. Of course the condoms never got used. Naked man in bath. I was 16. Knocked and called loudly before I walked in. He sat there with a big creepy grin on his face and visible erection. Gross. I worked as a housekeeper in a small motel for maybe 2 months. One day we had to clean a room covered completely in paper towels. Everything was covered. The bed, the chairs, the floor. Not horrific, but weird. This next one is why I hated my job and was happy to have gotten fired. We had to clean a room covered in crap. Human poo. On the bed. On the towels. Everywhere but the toilet. The towels were twisted and covered like they had been shoved up someone's rectum. And to top it all off, when I asked about being able to use gloves, I was told no. Just grab the crap covered stuff by the edges where they were crap free. Go, I hated that place. So many health hazards and OSHA violations. It pisses me off to think that some employers are such buttholes that they don't gaff about their employees. I'm also surprised at the number of people who found crap covered rooms, or crap in the bed. Like, that's what you're sleeping. Some people really are animals. I was a housekeeper on an island resort, and we had contractors living there during the week building a new high-rise. They would go home for the weekend and we had to clean their crap. They were getting free accommodation and didn't give a crap. They were always fricked. Weak old plates of food, spilt bong water, etc. But the most confusing moment was in the bottom of a fridge. There was a layer of sand a couple of cm thick and rock hard. So I proceed to chip away at the sand biscuit, and as I do so, I start to see small curly hairs appearing. Loads of them. To this day I still don't know how so many pubes got into the sand in the bottom of a mini fridge and what acted as the binding agent. Not sure I want to know, really. I wasn't a hotel maid, but a maid for one of those rent-a-maid companies where we'd have weekly appointments at people's homes. One family had a teenage daughter who had the flu, and she had vomited all over the bathroom floor. They didn't clean it up because they knew I was coming the next day. I did it, begrudgingly, expecting to get a $20 tip or something. Didn't get so much as a thank you. I was fired shortly thereafter for not cleaning well enough. I was not all that upset. And here we are, cleaning because the maids come tomorrow and we don't want them to think we're filthy animals. I was a desk clerk for 2 different Hampton Inns from 1994 to 1998. Interestingly, neither is a Hampton Inn anymore. I didn't clean rooms, but would occasionally deliver cribs and rollaways, and deal with minor maintenance issues during B shift. I have a few stories. More than a couple of rooms were used as M labs and completely trashed. One time a woman got the crap beaten out of her during breakfast hours, and paramedics were wheeling her through the lobby on a stretcher. I checked in a truck driver on B shift, and was back to work night audit the following night, and he came in dressed as a woman. I checked in a man in his late 60s early 70s during an early afternoon, and about 30 minutes later, a young blonde H in thigh-high patent leather boots came in asking directions to his room. I had a crazy woman come in and tell me that she had gangrene, and proceeded to remove her bandages and put them dirty side down on the desk. The maintenance people found her dildo in the bathtub. The maintenance staff would flip the mattresses on a quarterly basis, and I used to call it the harvest on account of the number of stroke books that they'd find. At one point they had at least 3 boxes of smut in the shop. All-time favorite story: a wheelchair-bound man checks in and pays cash for about 3 nights. Cash customers are treated like degenerates. They have to pay in full at check-in and leave a deposit if they want their phone and movies turned on. He left an incidentals deposit of a couple $100 and orders a porno every hour. He called down the front desk just as I had arrived to do the night audit and said he'd give me $200 if I could get him a case of beer. I told him I was there alone, but I'd see what I could do. Conveniently, a pizza delivery driver showed up to make a delivery, and I stopped him on the way up to the room and asked him to go grab a case of beer after he delivered his pizza. He was a little confused, but agreed. When he came back, I told him to sit tight while I ran the beer up to the room, and a naked H answered the door. I came back down and gave the pizza guy one of the hundreds. He was most appreciative. I certainly took some abuse working the front desk, but it was also a very fun job a lot of the time. Part of me misses it. It was very cool of you to give the pizza guy one of the $100s. After all, he did the footwork. I wonder if you offered him that before or after he returned with the beer. If he didn't know what he would get, that's a very helpful guy indeed, going along with the request in good faith. I had a summer job cleaning hotel rooms. One day a co-worker told me she walked into her first room that day and the first thing she saw, neatly arranged on the desk, were 3 dildos, a note saying please wash, and a 20-crown note, about $2. She didn't. Late to another post. My grandma used to clean hotel rooms and I used to go with her because it's a laid-back job and nobody else could watch me. My grandma was cleaning and I was sitting on the counter playing my DS. I wanted to get a drink, so checked to see if there was ice in the freezer. There was no ice, but there was a popsicle box. I got so excited, I ran into the bathroom and asked my grandmother if I could have a popsicle, assuming they were in plastic wrap. She said yes. I ran back to the freezer and reached into the cardboard box and pulled out a long, purple dildo covered in crap. Human fesses. I was 7. Not a hotel maid story, but my brother used to do cleaning maintenance work for the dorm buildings at his university. A water pipe burst in one of the dorm buildings over winter break, so he had to go into a bunch of people's rooms to box up their stuff and check for water damage. One of the rooms he had to enter was absolutely wallpapered with photos of a female student. There were hundreds of weird candid shots taken of her around campus, sitting in class, eating in the dining hall, etc. Printed out on printer paper and stuck up all over the walls. A university staff member had unlocked the door for him, and when they realized what they were looking at, she told him to leave and locked the room. My brother never found out what was going on, but he was called back to do final cleaning of that same room, now totally empty. A couple of weeks later, whoever was living there had left the dorm or been kicked out. Repost from another thread. Ex-hotel housekeeper here who is ready to tell the story of why I quit. It was a regular day with a slightly smaller than average schedule of rooms for the day, so I was in a good mood. I had 12 rooms that day. Normally I'd have 14-16. So I get to my last room, excited to be close to finishing for the day, and I open the door only to be greeted by a grotesque display of everything that is considered repulsive and dangerous to touch. There were, let's see if I remember this right, used condoms filled with semen on the bed accompanied by stains which may or may not have been semen. There was blood all throughout the room. Too much blood for there to have not been a murder. Like, Jigsaw played a game in the room. There were used needles, crack pipes, other random drug things, empty pill bottles, broken and unbroken liquor bottles, cigarette butts along with ashes and burn marks, plus tons of trash. Then the bathroom. There was pee everywhere, more blood, vomit in the tub, in and around the toilet, and here's the good part, ceiling. There was vomit on the ceiling. I noped out of the room and called the front desk and asked them to call the police. The cops came to investigate the blood and drug use in the room and probably the people who had rented it and checked out. I left for the day. So the next day rolls around and I look at my sheet and see that same room. Confused, I go up to the 3rd floor and I see the room in the same condition minus the drug stuff. Condoms, vomit, blood, bottles, cigarettes, trash, all still there. I call the manager and tell them I'm not doing it. It's a job for a biohazard team. They tell me, just get what you can. Wipe everything you can off the surfaces. We'll have a fabric cleaner come in for the rest. Nope. I quit. I dealt with small amounts of bodily fluids on a daily basis and I was fine with it. But that was way too much to ask of a 17-year-old kid on minimum wage. My mom was a hotel maid and I worked with her during the summers. I remember one day she was done early with her rooms so she came to help me finish up so we could go home. It's always the last freaking room that takes the price. We walked into the room and were automatically hit with the stench of crap and vomit. The people staying there were a family of 4 in a suite and were put up because their apartment had flooded or something. Apparently they had refused cleaning for the last week and now we knew why. The bathtub was filled with garbage, one of the walls was smeared with crap. Their 2-year-old kid had apparently smeared his own feces onto the wall and they just left it like that and it had dried up. There was a corner with a mountain of diapers. The older kid had gotten sick, probably from living in that filth, and had thrown up everywhere, and I mean everywhere. My mom and I refused to clean the room. We asked the manager to come and see. It was so disgusting the family got kicked out of the hotel and we had to call a cleaning company to get the dry feces out of the wall. Child Protective Services also came and asked us questions. Just a complete crap show. A little crap show, I see. I used to work at a hotel as a housekeeper. The rule was when you finished all of your rooms you had to go help the other housekeepers. Cause they like to go slow to get more hours and we just can't allow that. Anyways, so I wander up to the 2nd floor down at the far end. Room 226. A double queen. The room hadn't been stripped yet. The bedding and trash is still in there. And I thought that was odd because normally we have all of the rooms stripped by noon and it was 3 PM. Well, I opened the door and this overwhelming stench of crap just slams into my face, not even like normal crap smell either, like someone had been devouring hot sauce covered shrimp at an all-you-can-eat buffet for 3 days. I pull my shirt collar up over my nose. It can't be that bad. They probably just didn't flush, right? I press on into the bathroom, eyes beginning to water, my throat having dry involuntary seizures. I force my poor eyes open. Nothing. The fricking bathroom is spotless. Oh god, where is it? The panic sets in. I must go further into the darkness. I must cross the hotel room and open the window. As light illuminates the room, I can finally see what the crap demon has done. Do you remember the scene from Dogma, where the crap demon comes out of the toilet? I think he left there and checked right on into my hotel. Crap was smeared all over the white duvets and sheets on both beds. This dude had literally crap himself smeared it in the bed. Switched beds, and crap in that one too. He left a trail of sickly brown matter across the carpet, decorated with tiny surprise crap nuggets just for me. I noped. I told front desk that I absolutely refused to clean that room and if they wanted to write me up, fire me, I would be fine with that. I've posted this story before. I got a job at a local hotel cleaning the rooms the summer before university. One morning I got in early so it was just me and the front desk staff. I started setting up my trolley, then thought it would be a good idea to go look at the rooms that had been checked out first so I didn't get any nasty surprises. As I was walking down a corridor, a man in just his boxers stumbled out of his room in an absolute state. He was crying and could hardly breathe. He was in such a panic it was scary. He ran at me sobbing, "He's dead. He's dead." The rest is a bit of a blur, but I decided to just run and get the front desk staff. Call 999/not go in the room. The noise alerted some other guests who did go in the room. They also made calls to 999. I did a lot of running about getting information from a man who had gone in the room and a woman who was comforting the crying man. The ambulance and the police were there in minutes and I spoke to the police for quite a while. It turned out the men in the room were young and had been to a local festival. One of them was a wheelchair user, so they stayed at an accessible hotel. Mine, I think they both took some drugs, don't know what, or a huge amount of alcohol the night before, and the man in the wheelchair choked on his vomit in the night. His friend slept through it. They were both young, early 20s. It was unbelievably sad, but it wasn't written about in the newspapers, so I don't know about the details. TLDR, a man died and his poor friend found him. Oh man, this is so sad. I worked as a cleaner in a hostel in Amsterdam. I have had to clean some nasty things and some amusing. Some of the more memorable are used condoms, bloody tampons, pads, various sex toys, box of nail clippings, many bags of drugs, sticky rubber duck, Book of Mormon, Satanic Bible, so much poop, blood, vomit. I have been assaulted many times in work. While I closed one bathroom to clean it, I had a man push me to the wall, walk in and start pee on the floor in front of me. Also the wankers. So many men would lie in their beds masturbating while I cleaned the room around them. Also one time I found a bunch of newspaper clippings on a murder that had happened in Belgium. Later on there was a news segment that this murderer was thought to be in Amsterdam and a photo of the man was put up. It was the same man who had stayed at my work. We phoned the police, but he had checked out by then. This isn't an answer to the question posed, but a question I am posing. When I travel and get like a 6-pack of beer and then only drink like 4 or 5, and I'll leave the extra behind in the mini fridge, do you guys like that? Like, does that go to you? Or do you have to throw it out even though it's unopened and brand new? Cause I do that often and was just curious if I was wasting booze or not. I've also done this on multiple occasions and assumed you'd all stockpile it for the Christmas party. Please confirm. I worked on the front desk of a hotel for 7 years. Housekeeping is very hard work physically and timing is everything. If a room was a checkout, they had 22 minutes to ensure it was back to perfect. Plus their pay conditions are really poor. Anyway, various items over the years were found, including drugs. The biggest find was a gun. This is in Australia, where we don't really do the whole gun thing. It was found under the bed. It was impossible to trace it back to a guest as beds were only vacuumed under every 6 months. Obviously the police were called in. Another unique find was an untouched room. Basically Chinese tour groups would stay with us and occasionally some would run away. They would leave the hotel in the early hours of the morning through the front door, viewed on CCTV. They planned to seek a better life in Australia. They would only take with them the luggage they had. Should their attempt fail, they can return to any airport and get on a flight back to China, but they will never be allowed to leave China ever again. TBH, the worst part of this is that they only cleaned under the beds twice a year. Dear hotel maids, I apologize for the time my husband drank 2 bottles of Sutter Home and half a dozen chocolate brownies and then spent the night crying and puking in the bathtub, the toilet, the sink, everywhere. I tried my best to clean up what I could, but I'm sure the stink alone ruined your day. I did leave an extra tip. I am so sorry. He has promised never to do it again. Edit. My husband is getting a kick out of everyone's assumptions about him, me, and our relationship. Good ole Reddit. You crazy kids. I apologize for the time I hit a tree going down a slope and got a ton of blood on my sheets when my forehead split open again when I was asleep. I swear nobody was murdered, but I had to be in Reno later that morning and checked out at 4:30 AM. I cleaned villas for a few months in my late teens. They were pretty pricey, starting at $350 with most being around $600. People were generally pretty good, but maybe 1 in 5 left it pretty bad. But the most memorable stay was the Asian busload. They turned up in a minibus, maybe a dozen, men and women, all in suits and looking very sensible. Us cleaners are happy. Business folk usually didn't leave much mess or cause trouble, and they had booked 3 of the 10 buildings. We rocked up the next morning, after they had left, to absolute chaos. The first 2 buildings had 2 wheelie bins of trash, takeaway boxes, for a place not in town, personal hygiene products packaging, wine boxes, empty shopping bags, junk food wrappers, etc. I was on bathrooms, and I nearly cried walking in. Hair in the drains, scum 6 feet up the walls, mud everywhere, spilt shampoo, soap trodden into the drain. It took much longer than it should have. Finally we finished up those 2 and were ready to start on the 3rd. It was much bigger, having a large entertainment area. The first thing we noticed was the smell. Perfume, alcohol and really strong cigars. We left the door open and took a smocko. The head cleaner went in first after our break and you could hear her swear. "Oh crap, look what they've done. Jesus, what the heck?" First, leading from the door was big drops of red wax on the wooden floor. Then lots of beer bottles. Some were broken. Then more rubbish and a lot more wax. It was on the suede lounges, the kitchen benches, the bathroom basin. There were broken wine glasses in one spot, some with lipstick on them and one with blood. Blood drops from there to the sink. More bottles, dozens and dozens of drinks worth. Little piles of ash on the counters. Burn marks on the floor and lounges. It took us all day, even with extra staff, to clean. Then we had to close the larger building for several days while the smell cleared and we got replacements. The group was contacted about the damage and told they would be charged for all the damage. They didn't care. Apparently asked how much and just said okay. LOL, you guys are hilarious. Rappers. I don't know where they were from. Awful I know, but they weren't Japanese. We had a lady who cleaned hotels tell us about the time she walked in and there were 10 severed heads in the bathtub with the hotel water running. Immediately left the room and had the manager call the police. Tons of police come to investigate with multiple guys with earpieces in place. The gentleman whose room it was came back and was immediately taken down. Turns out he was in charge of an end cadaver lab being held the next AM and needed to thaw the specimens. Tough to explain, but it got sorted out once the heads were all accounted for. 5 years in hotel security. Some females have very heavy flows and don't prepare themselves before bed. Several times housekeepers thought it was a crime scene and called us. Also lots of unsecured and loaded firearms. I would just unload them and lock them in the guest's safe, then change the code so they could have a short lecture before getting it back. I work in a hotel, and once a cop left his duty gun in the bedside cabinet. I used to work part-time as one. I'm a man, so not exactly a maid. Once, I found a sticky, yellow dildo with a smell that will suffocate your soul and scar you for life. It was shaped like a deformed Neptune's trident, with 2 honkin' big poles and a smaller pole, not even half the size of the first 2. I hope they are called poles since I'm not a dildongineer. I have heard of rabbit vibrators, since my GF has one, but not a 3-headed one. It was stuck under the mattress, leaving the middle of it a little sickly green. So yeah, frick you, Neptune's wife. One in the stink, one in the pink, one in the hum. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.